You ever notice how the world feels different after midnight? Like the air gets heavier, the shadows stretch a little longer, and the silence isn't really silent at all. They say nothing good happens after 12, but that's just what they tell you to keep you from asking questions. The truth is, there are stories out there, stories they tried to bury. Stories that claw their way back up when the clock strikes 1, 2, 3. Stories that don't want to be forgotten. If you're watching this, it's already too late. I'm not saying that to scare you. Well, maybe I am. A little. But mostly, I'm just being honest. Because once you hear these stories, you can't unhear them. You can't go back to pretending the night is just empty darkness. You'll start to notice things. The way your house creaks when you're alone. The way your phone screen flickers at 3:07 a.m. The way you swear you saw something move in the corner of your eye. But when you look, there's nothing there. Or at least, nothing you can see. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 true tales. Not urban legends. Not campfire stories, real accounts from people who wish they could forget. Each one is darker than the last. Only the brave make it to the end. Most people turn this off before the final story. But those who finish never forget. Some of you will laugh, just like I used to. I used to think these stories were just internet nonsense. The kind of thing you watch to kill time before bed. Now I can't sleep. Not really. Not after what I've seen. So, if you're still here, if you're still listening, remember, you chose this. You wanted to know what happens after midnight. Just don't say I didn't warn you. Let's start with the first case. You ever work a job so boring you start to wonder if you're even awake? That was me 6 months ago, pulling the graveyard shift at a warehouse on the edge of town. Not the kind of place you'd expect to find in a horror story, just a squat, ugly building surrounded by chain-link fence and a sea of cracked asphalt. My job was simple. Walk the perimeter every hour, check the cameras, make sure nobody was trying to steal pallets of off-brand soda or expired snack cakes. The pay was crap, but the hours were worse. Midnight to 6, 5 nights a week. I used to joke that the only thing I was guarding was my own sanity. The first few weeks, I tried to keep myself entertained. I'd bring a book or stream podcasts on my phone or swap dumb memes with the other guard, Mike, over the radio. We had this running gag about the Warehouse 13 ghost, some faceless spook that haunted the break room and stole people's lunches. I'd leave sticky notes on the fridge. Ghost, please stop eating my yogurt. Mike would reply, sorry, Ghost was hungry. It was the kind of humor you develop when you're stuck in a fluorescent-lit purgatory, counting down the hours until sunrise. But then, things started to get weird. Not all at once. Just little things, at first. The security cameras would glitch, flicker, or freeze for a few seconds. I'd be watching the monitors, and suddenly the feed from the loading dock would go black, then snap back on like nothing happened. I blamed it on the ancient wiring, or maybe the rats that lived in the walls. But then I started hearing noises. Not the usual creaks and groans of an old building settling, but footsteps. Slow, deliberate, echoing in the empty corridors. Sometimes I'd hear a door slam, or a pallet jack rolling across the concrete, even though I knew I was the only one there. One night, around 2:30, I was doing my rounds when my radio crackled. Hey, you see anything weird on the south side? Mike's voice, a little shaky. I laughed. Define weird. You mean besides the ghost? No, seriously. I thought I saw someone by the fence. Tall guy, just standing there. I peered out the window, but all I saw was darkness and the distant glow of the highway. Probably just a shadow. Or your imagination. Yeah, maybe, he said, but he didn't sound convinced. After that, the joke stopped. Mike started calling in sick more often. Then, one night, he just didn't show up. No call, no text. I figured he'd finally quit, like the others before him. The turnover rate was insane. Nobody lasted more than a few months. I used to think it was the hours or the pay. Now I'm not so sure. The next week, I was alone. The cameras glitched more often. Sometimes, when the feed came back, I'd catch a glimpse of something, a shape, a shadow, just at the edge of the frame. Always in the same spot, by the loading dock. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just a trick of the light, but the feeling wouldn't go away, like I was being watched. One night, I decided to check it out. I grabbed my flashlight and headed for the loading dock. The air was cold, and the silence felt thick, like it was pressing in on me. I swept the beam across the concrete, half expecting to see a raccoon or a stray cat. But there was nothing, just the echo of my own footsteps. Then I heard it a whisper, so faint I thought I imagined it. Hey, you there?" I spun around, heart pounding. The radio was dead silent. "Mike," I whispered, even though I knew it couldn't be him. No answer, just the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. I went back to the security office and rewound the camera feed. There was a tall, thin figure standing perfectly still by the fence. No face, no features, just a silhouette darker than the night around it. I watched as it slowly turned its head, as if it knew I was watching. Then the feed glitched, and when it came back, the figure was gone. After that, I started seeing it everywhere. Not just on the cameras, but out of the corner of my eye, reflected in the glass of the vending machine, or standing at the end of a hallway. Always just out of reach, always watching. I stopped sleeping during the day. I started drinking more coffee, more energy drinks, anything to keep myself awake. I told myself I was imagining things, that it was just the stress, the isolation, the endless nights. But then the dream started. I'd close my eyes and find myself back in the warehouse, walking the same endless loop over and over. The lights would flicker, the cameras would glitch, and the figure would be waiting for me, closer each time. Sometimes I'd wake up and find myself standing in the middle of the break room, with no memory of how I got there. I tried to quit. I really did. But every time I called the supervisor, the line would go dead. Every time I tried to leave, my car wouldn't start, or the gate would be locked. It was like the warehouse didn't want to let me go. One night, I snapped. I grabbed the biggest wrench I could find and marched down to the loading dock, determined to face whatever was haunting me. The air was freezing, and the shadows seemed to pulse and writhe around me. I shouted, "I know you're there. Show yourself." My voice echoed, swallowed by the darkness. And then it did. The figure stepped out from behind a stack of pallets, impossibly tall, its face a shifting blur of static and shadow. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The world twisted, the walls stretched and bent, and suddenly I was back in the security office, watching myself on the monitors. Only it wasn't me. It was the figure, wearing my uniform, staring into the camera with empty, hollow eyes. I realized then that I wasn't the one watching, I was the one being watched. The warehouse wasn't just a building. It was a trap, a loop, a nightmare that fed on people like me. I don't know how long I've been here. Days, weeks, months, they all blur together. Sometimes I see new guards on the cameras, walking the same endless loop, never noticing the figure in the shadows. If you ever get a job offer at Warehouse 13, don't take it. If you see me on the cameras, don't wave. Don't try to help. Just turn them off. I'm still here, every night, watching and being watched, waiting for someone to break the cycle. That was just the beginning. The next story is even stranger. Ever get that feeling you're being watched at night? Not just the usual paranoia, but something deeper, like the darkness itself is holding its breath, waiting for you to notice. I used to think it was just me, but after sharing these stories, I know I'm not alone. The comments you leave, the theories you send, they re-proof that the night is stranger than any of us want to admit. Let me read a few that stuck with me. Here's one from Shadow Watcher 13. I used to work security too. Sometimes I'd see my own face on the monitors, even when I was nowhere near the cameras. I quit after the third time. Still see things moving in the corners of my room at night. Chilling, right? Or this one, from Insomniac Files. What if the stories are all connected? Like, the Watcher isn't just in the warehouse. Maybe it moves from place to place, following people who know too much. I wish I could say that's just a theory, but honestly, I'm not so sure anymore. Some of you have noticed patterns, little details I haven't even mentioned. And yeah, there are things I can't share yet. Not because I don't want to, but because some secrets are better left in the dark. For now, the next story comes from a viewer who wishes they'd never sent their message. They thought sharing would help them sleep. Spoiler, it didn't. If you think the first story was unsettling, just wait. This one asks for everyone who has ever heard a sound at their window and told themselves it was just the wind. Story 2, The Window Knocker. I grew up in the kind of place where the woods start at your backyard and the nearest neighbor is a mile down a dirt road. It's the sort of rural quiet that city people romanticize, but when you're actually living in it, especially at night, it's a different story. My parents both worked night shifts at the hospital, so I was used to being home alone. I'd always tell them I was fine, that I liked the peace and quiet. But the truth is, the silence out here isn't peaceful. It's heavy. It presses in on you, especially after dark. That night started like any other. I was sprawled on the couch, phone in hand, texting my friends about the usual nonsense. We had this group chat where we send each other memes and dare each other to go outside and take pictures of the creepy woods. It was a running joke how every horror movie starts with a dumb teenager wandering into the trees. I sent a selfie with the window behind me. Captioned, "If you see a face in the glass, call 911." My friend Jess replied with a string of ghost emojis. I laughed, but I still glanced over my shoulder, just in case. The sun set fast, as it always does out here. One minute the world was gold and green. The next it was swallowed by blue-black shadows. I turned on every light in the house, a habit I'd never admit to my friends. I microwaved some leftover pizza, queued up a horror movie because why not tempt fate, and settled in for the night. It was around 10:30 when I heard the first knock. Just a soft, polite tap 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 on the living room window. I paused the movie, listening. Nothing. Probably a branch, I told myself. Or maybe a bird. I went back to my phone, typing, "Pretty sure the Blair Witch is at my window." Jess replied, "Pics, or it didn't happen." I grinned, but I didn't get up to check. A few minutes later, the knocking came again. Louder this time. 3 sharp raps, like someone's knuckles on glass. I muted the TV and stood up, heart thumping. I crept to the window and peered out, but all I saw was my own reflection and the darkness beyond. No branches near the glass, no sign of anything. I told myself it was nothing, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there, just beyond the reach of the porch light. I texted my mom, "Hey, you guys coming home late?" She replied right away, "Probably after midnight. Everything okay?" I hesitated, then typed, "Yeah, just bored. Love you." I didn't want to sound like a little kid, scared of the dark. The knocking started again, this time on the kitchen window. I froze. The kitchen was on the other side of the house. I moved slowly, every step creaking on the old wooden floor. I flicked on the kitchen light and stared at the window. Nothing. Just my own pale face, wide-eyed and anxious. I called Jess. "Dude, I keep hearing knocking. Like, someone's going around the house." She laughed. "It's probably a raccoon. Or Bigfoot. Or the window knocker." I rolled my eyes. "What's the window knocker? You don't know the legend? My grandma used to tell us if you hear knocking at night, don't answer. It's the knocker. If you look, it gets in. If you ignore it, it goes away." I snorted. "That's comforting." She giggled. "Just don't open the window, genius." We joked about it for a while, but when I hung up, the house felt colder. The knocking didn't stop. It moved from window to window, always 3 knocks, always just as I started to relax. I tried turning up the TV, but the sound seemed to make it worse. The lights flickered, buzzing like angry insects. I texted my dad. "Power's acting weird. Can you check the fuse box when you get home?" No reply. By midnight, I was pacing the hallway, phone clutched in my hand. The knocking was everywhere now: living room, kitchen, bathroom, even the tiny window in the laundry room. I tried to call my parents, but the call wouldn't go through. Just static, then silence. I remembered what Jess said, "Don't look, don't answer." But curiosity is a powerful thing. I crept to the living room window, heart hammering, and pressed my face to the glass. At first, I saw nothing, just my own reflection, pale and scared. Then, slowly, the reflection began to change. My face twisted, eyes going dark, mouth stretching into a grin that wasn't mine. The reflection raised its hand and beckoned, fingers curling in a slow, deliberate motion. I stumbled back, tripping over the coffee table, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The knocking grew frantic, pounding on every window, every door. The lights flickered and died, plunging the house into darkness. I grabbed my phone, the screen the only light left, and ran for the front door. As I fumbled with the lock, I heard a voice, my own voice, whispering from the other side of the door, "Let me in." I bolted. I ran out into the yard, barefoot and shaking, the cold grass wet against my feet. I didn't stop until I reached the end of the driveway, where the woods pressed close on either side. I looked back at the house. Every window was dark, but I could see shapes moving inside shadows that looked like me, pacing from room to room. I called my mom again, sobbing, begging her to come home. She finally answered, her voice groggy with sleep. "Honey, what's wrong?" I tried to explain, but the words wouldn't come out right. She promised they'd be home soon, told me to stay outside, to stay in the light. I waited on the porch until dawn, shivering, watching the windows. The knocking never stopped. Even now, weeks later, I still hear it, sometimes 3 sharp raps, just as I'm falling asleep. Sometimes I dream about the reflection, about the thing that wears my face and waits for me to look. If you hear knocking tonight, don't answer. Don't look. Some say the knocker can follow you through screens, through stories, through the places where the night is deepest. A few of you sent in similar stories. Maybe it's more than a legend. You think that's bad? The last story is the one that keeps me up at night. Still with me? If you are, you're in rare company. Most people quit by now. Turn off the video, close the tab, pretend the stories are just stories. But you're different. You want to know how deep the rabbit hole goes. Or maybe you just can't look away. I've been reading your theories, piecing together the patterns you see. Here's one that keeps coming up. What if these stories aren't just random nightmares? What if there's something connecting them, something that watches, waits, and chooses who gets to see behind the curtain? The night watcher, the window knocker, both of them are about being seen. About something on the other side of the glass, the camera, the dark. Maybe it's not about the place, but about the act of looking. Maybe the real danger is in noticing the wrong thing at the wrong time. Some of you have noticed details I never mentioned. The time on the clock, the way the voices sound just a little too familiar. There's a pattern here, but I can't say more. Not yet. Some details are too dangerous to reveal. Trust me, I've learned that the hard way. This last story, I almost didn't share it. Some things are better left unsaid, better left in the dark where they belong. But you wanted the truth. You wanted to know what keeps me up at night. What makes me check my phone at 3 a.m. and wonder if I'm really alone. So here it is. Drop your theories below, if you dare. But remember, sometimes the answers are worse than the questions. You wanted the truth. Here it is. I've always been a night owl. Insomnia runs in my family. Or at least that's what I tell myself when I am still awake at 3 in the morning, scrolling endlessly through social media, watching the world get quieter and stranger. There's a certain comfort in the glow of a phone screen, the illusion that you're not really alone, even when the rest of the world is asleep. I used to joke that nothing interesting ever happens at 3 a.m. unless you count the existential dread and the occasional raccoon fight outside my window. That was before the call started. The first time, I barely noticed. My phone buzzed at 3:01 a.m., the screen lighting up with an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Who calls at that hour, anyway? Probably a scammer or some drunk dialer who got the wrong number. I rolled over and tried to ignore the way my heart was beating a little too fast. The next night, it happened again. 3 a.m. on the dot. Same number, same silence when I picked up. I could hear breathing, slow and deliberate, like someone was holding the phone right up to their mouth. I hung up, annoyed, and texted my friend Sam. Dude, someone keeps calling me at 3 a.m. Should I be worried or just flattered? He replied with a string of laughing emojis and a meme about telemarketers from hell. By the third night, I was starting to get creeped out. The call came at exactly 3 a.m., and this time, when I answered, there was a voice. Distorted, like it was coming through a broken speaker, but unmistakably human. Did you see the watcher last night? I froze. Who is this? Silence. Then, a low chuckle, and the line went dead. I didn't sleep after that. I kept replaying the voice in my head, the way it seemed to know something about me, about what I'd been watching. I tried to brush it off, maybe it was a prank, maybe Sam was messing with me. But the next night, the call came again. This time, I let it ring. Once, twice. On the third ring, I picked up, my voice shaking. Hello. A pause. Then, you shouldn't have answered. I hung up, my hands clammy. I blocked the number, turned my phone off, tried to convince myself it was over. But it wasn't. The calls kept coming, always at 3 a.m., always from different numbers. Sometimes the voice would whisper my name. Sometimes it would repeat things I'd said earlier that day, things I hadn't told anyone. Still can't sleep? Nice shirt. Blue looks good on you. Don't look behind you. I started to lose it. I stopped going out at night, stopped talking to friends. I even called the police, but they just told me to change my number, to stop answering unknown calls. I tried, but it didn't help. The calls found me, no matter what I did. One night, desperate, I posted about it online. I found a forum for people who'd experienced weird stuff, paranormal, unexplained, you name it. I described the calls, the voice, the timing. Within minutes, I got a reply. Never answer after the third ring. That's when they get in. I stared at the screen, chills running down my spine. Another user chimed in. You're not the only one. They call me too. Sometimes they mention the watcher or the knocker. It's like they know what scares you most. I scrolled through the thread, heart pounding. Dozens of people, all with the same story. Calls at 3 a.m. Voices that knew too much. Warnings about answering on the third ring. Some said the calls stopped if you ignored them. Others said they only got worse. That night, I sat in the dark, phone in hand, watching the clock tick closer to 3 o'clock. When the call came, I let it ring. Once, twice. On the third ring, I answered. The world shifted. I wasn't in my room anymore. I was standing in a long, empty hallway, the walls lined with mirrors. In each reflection, I saw myself, but not quite. Some versions of me were older, some younger, some with eyes that were too dark, too empty. At the end of the hallway stood a figure, tall and thin, its face a blur of static. The watcher. Behind me, I heard knocking 3 sharp raps, over and over. The knocker. The phone in my hand buzzed, and I looked down. The screen was filled with names, numbers, messages from people I'd never met. Don't answer. It's already too late. They're watching. I tried to run, but the hallway stretched on forever. The mirrors warped, showing glimpses of other places, an empty warehouse, a dark house in the woods, 1,000 rooms where people sat alone, waiting for the phone to ring. The voice came again, right in my ear. You let us in. Now you're part of the network. I woke up in my bed, drenched in sweat, the phone buzzing in my hand. 3 a.m. Unknown number. I didn't answer, but the voicemail icon blinked. I listened, heart pounding. My own voice, whispering. If your phone rings at 3:00 a.m., don't answer. Or do. It's already too late. I tried to warn people. I posted on every forum, every social media site, but the calls kept coming. Sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I see something standing behind me, just out of focus. Sometimes, I hear knocking at the window or footsteps in the hall. Sometimes, I wonder if I ever really woke up at all. Some say the caller is watching this video right now. Maybe you're next. Maybe you've already gotten the call, and you just don't remember. You made it to the end. Or did you? 3 stories. 3 warnings. But the night isn't over, not really. If you've made it this far, you're braver than most. Or maybe just unlucky. Maybe you're the kind of person who can't help but stare into the dark, who listens for the things that move when the world is supposed to be asleep. Maybe you're like me, someone who thought they were safe, until the night started whispering back. I wish I could tell you that's all there is. That the watcher, the knocker, the caller are just stories, just shadows in the corners of our minds. But the truth is, there are more stories. Some I can't share. Not yet. Some are still happening, right now, in houses just like yours, on streets you've walked 100 times. Some are waiting for the right moment, the right person, the right midnight. You might think you're safe because you're just watching a video, sitting in your room with the lights on, phone in hand. But that's how it always starts. A story, a sound, a flicker in the corner of your eye. The feeling that you're not alone, even when you know you should be. That's how they find you, through screens, through stories, through the places where the night is deepest. So here's what I want you to do. Share your own midnight story in the comments. Maybe I'll read it next time, if you're still here. Maybe your story will be the one that keeps someone else awake, listening for footsteps, watching the clock tick past 3. Or maybe it'll be the one that finally connects all the pieces, that reveals the pattern none of us want to see. Before you go, check your windows, check your phone, and whatever you do, don't look behind you. The night is never really empty, and some stories never end.